In our last story, we recounted how Tanjiro and his companions faced a fierce assault from Muzan Kibutsuji's assassins at Lady Tamaya's mansion, where even Yushiro's blood demon art for concealment was effortlessly broken. The attacking demons were a duo named Susamaru and Yahaba, who arrogantly claimed to be members of the 12 Kizuku. Susamaru, who fought with a ferociously direct style, manipulated 6 arms and a countless number of devastatingly powerful Tamari handballs. Yahaba, on the other hand, could mark any object with arrow symbols using the eyeballs on his palms, allowing him to forcibly alter its trajectory. Through their seamless coordination, Yushiro was the first to fall, his head grievously wounded by a Tamari, leaving him unable to fight back. Tanjiro was also thrown into a desperate struggle, unable to predict the bizarre attack patterns of the handballs. Fortunately, Yushiro managed to lend his own visual prowess to Tanjiro, by way of a paper talisman, which allowed him to see the invisible arrows and anticipate their movements. Tanjiro immediately called for Nezuko's aid. The girl burst from her box, and her powerful kicks successfully disrupted Susamaru, leaving her no time to use her blood demon art. Seizing this opportunity, Tanjiro fiercely counterattacked, unleashing a magnificent water-breathing, third form, flowing dance, weaving a sword net as fluid as water against Susamaru. However, intent on collecting a blood sample, Tanjiro did not deliver a fatal blow. The recovered Susamaru prepared to launch another vicious assault. Seeing this, Yushiro devised a plan. He deliberately provoked her, mentioning the forbidden name of Muzan Kibutsuji. Meanwhile, on another front, Nezuko was forced back to Tanjiro's side by Yahaba's arrow abilities. When she saw the badly injured Tamayo and Yushiro, she seemed to see them as the mother and brother she needed to protect. An immense fighting spirit erupted from within her, and she charged fearlessly towards Susamaru. This left Tanjiro to face Yahaba, but his opponent's strength was truly formidable. Even when Tanjiro could see the opening thread, Yahaba simply severed it. Subsequently, Tanjiro was manipulated by countless arrows, spun around helplessly, until he lost his ability to fight back. His Nichirin blade was shattered by Susamaru's Tamari, and his right leg was fractured. It was only thanks to Tamayo's timely medical treatment that he avoided permanent injury. With the tide of battle shifting rapidly, Tanjiro knew he could not win with brute force and must rely on agile movements. He thus combined the twisting power of the water-breathing, 6th form, whirlpool, with the fluid footwork of the 3rd form, flowing dance. In a single moment, he nullified the pulling force of the arrows and closed the distance to Yahaba, beheading him with one strike. However, Yahaba's obsession with gaining Muzan's approval was almost maniacal. With his dying breath, he unleashed his final blood demon art, attempting to tear Tanjiro to pieces. Under that terrifying ripping force, Tanjiro could only swing his blade desperately to resist. Just as his body was about to be torn asunder, Yahaba finally disintegrated into ash. On the other side of the fight, Yushiro managed to stall Susamaru with his own blood demon art, while Nezuko, quickly healed by Tamayo, re-entered the fray. Perhaps driven by her conviction to protect her family, Nezuko's power was increasing at an astonishing rate, allowing her to fight on even terms with Susamaru. It was then that Tamayo used her blood demon art, Magical Aroma of Daylight, a scent that lowers an opponent's cognitive functions, making them unable to lie or keep secrets. Goaded by Tamayo's words, Susamaru inadvertently shouted Muzan's name, instantly triggering the curse he had placed on his subordinates. In a state of absolute terror, her body was torn apart from the inside out, and she met a tragic end. After the battle, Tamayo observed that neither of these two opponents were true members of the 12 Kizuki, as the eyes of the 12 Kizuki are engraved with a number personally bestowed by Muzan, and their power far exceeds that of these two. Nevertheless, Tamayo successfully collected Susamaru's blood for her research. At Susamaru's dying request, Tanjiro placed her Tamari ball by her side. In her final moments, this demon with blood-soaked hands revealed the heart of a child who simply wanted to play. It was because she had been deceived by Muzan, with the false title of a 12 Kizuki, that she had fought so desperately for him, only to meet such a fate. This outcome only intensified Tanjiro's rage toward Muzan, and he swore an oath to eradicate such evil. The turmoil had finally subsided. Nezuko transferred her longing for her deceased mother and brother onto Tamayo and Yushiro. Because of this, Tamayo offered to take care of Nezuko, pointing out that Tanjiro's path as a demon slayer was fraught with constant battle and danger. Hearing this, Tanjiro fell into a long silence. In the end, though grateful for Tamayo's kindness, he decided that he and Nezuko would continue their journey together. No matter how perilous the future, his family would never be separated again. As they parted ways, the ever-haughty Yushiro rarely admitted that Nezuko was, indeed, a beautiful girl. The next day, a Kasugo crow delivered new orders. Their next destination was to the south-southeast. Along the way, Tanjiro unexpectedly ran into another demon slayer from his cohort, Zenitsu Agatsuma. At that moment, Zenitsu was clinging to a woman, mistakenly believing she was in love with him, and was tearfully begging her to marry him. Fortunately, Tanjiro could understand the frantic chirps of Zenitsu's sparrow messenger, Shintaro, and intervened to stop the spectacle. It turned out that Zenitsu was terrified he would die on his next mission, and was thus desperate to get married. He had only become a swordsman because he could not defy his master's orders. After some commotion, Zenitsu decided to travel with Tanjiro. They arrived at their destination, an ominous-looking mansion. Two children at the gate told them their older brother had been dragged inside by a monster. Just as they finished speaking, a blood-covered man was flung from the building and died shortly after. He was not, however, the children's brother, indicating that the demon inside had captured many people. Tanjiro left Nezuko's box to protect the children and dragged the trembling Zenitsu inside to investigate. However, the children, frightened by the sounds coming from the box, followed them in. Suddenly, the sound of a drum echoed, and the entire space shifted. When the sound stopped, Tanjiro and the little girl he was with were separated from the other two. Appearing before them was the master of the mansion, the former lower rank 6 of the 12 Kizuki Kogai. Meanwhile, Zenitsu and the boy encountered a mysterious figure wearing a boar's head mask. The terrifying sight made Zenitsu wet himself on the spot, though the boy remained surprisingly calm. Luckily, the boar-headed man ignored them and rushed past. Elsewhere, Tanjiro told the girl to hide while he confronted Kyogai. Kyogai's blood demon art allowed him to rotate any room in the mansion by striking the drums on his body. Suddenly, with a cry of pig assault, the boar-headed man, wielding 2 Nichiren blades, charged into the fray, heading straight for Kyogai. It turned out he was also a demon slayer, with a straightforward and reckless personality, and a ferocious fighting style. Another beat of the drum sounded, and Tanjiro and the girl were transported to another room. There, following a scent, Tanjiro found a young boy nervously clutching a drum and striking it randomly. Elsewhere, the cowardly Zenitsu and the boy unfortunately encountered a Tum demon. Faced with its agile and deadly Tun attacks, Zenitsu fled in terror. He and the boy hid in a room, but were cornered by the demon. Perhaps due to the extreme fear, Zenitsu's eyes rolled back and he fell into a deep sleep. The Tum demon, overjoyed, immediately launched a fierce attack. However, to everyone's surprise, the sleeping Zenitsu seemed to become another person entirely, erupting with astonishing power. He unleashed thunder breathing, first form, thunderclap and flash, moving at a speed imperceptible to the naked eye, and instantly slayed the Tun demon. It appeared that Zenitsu possessed a powerful second personality that awakened in his sleep, a fact of which he himself was unaware. At the same time, the boar-headed man was also transported to another room, and on his pig assault rampage, he handily dispatched another demon. As for Kogai, he was searching for his true target, a person with Moreki, or rare blood. Kyogai was once a member of the 12 Kizuki, but Muzan stripped him of his rank due to his stagnating power. He desperately craved recognition and hoped to regain his position by consuming a Moreki, whose blood is a delicacy for demons equivalent to 100 humans. As it happened, the boy Tanjiro had found was the children's older brother and the very Murachi that Kyogai was hunting. Earlier, 3 other demons had been fighting over him, and he had taken Kyogai's drum in the confusion to escape and hide, thus saving his life. Just then, Kyogai located them by scent. To protect the children, Tanjiro charged at Kyogai, telling the kids to strike the drum and seal the room's door. Soon, Tanjiro and Kyogai were locked in their final showdown. Still suffering from his previous injuries, Tanjiro was immediately overwhelmed by Kyogai's blood demon art. Between the rapidly rotating room and the demon's sharp claws, he was quickly pushed into a desperate situation. In this moment of crisis, Tanjiro remembered his master's teaching. Water takes no shape, and the tides of battle are ever-changing. The 10 forms of water breathing could be combined to compensate for his injuries. With that, he calmed his mind, encouraged himself, and rallied his spirit. Seeing this, Kaigai increased the speed of his drumming. In the midst of their fierce clash, Tanjiro even learned a new breathing technique, using lighter breaths to ease the burden on his wounds, and momentarily strengthening the muscles around his fractured bones to dodge countless attacks. Finally, seizing an opening, he successfully slew Kaigai. In his final moments, Kaigai found peace, feeling validated by Tanjiro's recognition of his blood demon art and his writing. Afterwards, Tanjiro collected a sample of Kyugai's blood and gave it to Yushiro's messenger cat before leading the children out of the mansion. The sight that greeted them was Zenitsu, desperately protecting Nezuko's box. It turned out the boar-headed man had discovered a demon inside and was trying to destroy it. But Zenitsu, for Tanjiro's sake, was guarding the box with his life. He remembered Tanjiro telling him that what was inside was more precious to him than anything. In truth, Zenitsu's keen hearing had already told him that the occupant was not human, but for the sake of his friend, he had cast aside all thought for his own safety. Deeply moved by this, Tanjiro angrily confronted the boar-headed man. A single punch from Tanjiro broke the man's ribs, yet this only seemed to excite him further, and he engaged Tanjiro in a bare-fisted brawl. The two traded blows that were so visceral, they made onlookers cringe. The boar man's movements were unnaturally swift, like a primeval beast, but Tanjiro's head was harder. A powerful headbutt sent the boar mask flying, revealing a surprisingly beautiful, almost feminine face underneath. He introduced himself as Inosuke Hashibira, before promptly collapsing and foaming at the mouth, clearly badly injured. In contrast, Tanjiro's iron-like head was completely unharmed. A long while later, Inosuke awoke. Intensely competitive, he was singularly focused on challenging Tanjiro again, and even began training his headbutting skills. Just then, a Kasugai crow arrived with orders for them to descend the mountain. To protect the Marechi boy, the crow also gave him a wisteria sachet to ward off demons. After bidding farewell to the 3 children, the group followed the crow down to a house with a wisteria family crest, where they were cared for by an old woman. These families have provided aid to the Demon Slayer Corps for generations, free of charge. At last, Tanjiro and the others could rest and recuperate. Under the old woman's kind care, they felt a warmth they hadn't experienced in a long time. That night, Inosuke revealed that he had no family and was raised in the mountains. Tanjiro, in turn, told them the full story of Nezuko. Upon seeing Nezuko's adorable face, Zenitsu immediately started treating Tanjiro like his own dear brother. Several days later, once they had recovered, the trio received orders to head to Natagumo Mountain. It was said that many demon slayers had met with disaster there. Bidding farewell to the kind old woman, they set out. After a full day's journey, they arrived at the foot of the mountain late at night. Right before their eyes, a fellow demon slayer was dragged away into the dense forest by unseen threads. Tanjiro and Inosuke immediately quickened their pace, but Zenitsu was frozen in place, trembling with fear and unable to move forward. Soon, Tanjiro and Inosuke met a surviving slayer named Murata. He explained that a whole squad of swordsmen had entered the mountain, but many of them were being controlled by threads and forced to kill each other. At the same time, the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps received a report from the mountain and deduced that a member of the 12 Kazuki was likely present. He therefore dispatched 2 of the Corps' elite Hashira, the Water Hashira, Gyu Tomioka, and the Insect Hashira, Shinobu Kocho, to handle the crisis. Meanwhile, Zenitsu sat alone on the ground, lamenting his own weakness and helplessness. It was then that Shintaro flew to him, seemingly encouraging him to stop wallowing in self-pity and go help his friends. This made Zenitsu think of Nezuko, who was in the box on Tanjiro's back. Motivated to protect his future wife, Zenitsu immediately gathered his courage and charged into Natagumo Mountain. Back with Tanjiro's group, they were being attacked by the bodies of numerous slayers, manipulated by threads. These puppets were difficult to fight, and even if the threads were cut, they would quickly reattach. The only way to resolve the crisis was to find the demon controlling them from behind the scenes. Suddenly, a solitary figure stood under the moonlight. His cold eyes looked upon them as if they were already dead. He spoke in a low voice, "Do not interfere with my family's peaceful life." With that, he departed as coolly as he had appeared, leaving an enraged Inosuke in his wake. To find the hidden puppeteer, Inosuke used beast breathing, 7th form, spatial awareness. His powerful senses instantly located the controlling demon's position. Barata offered to hold off all the controlled slayers, while Tanjiro and Inosuke went after the mastermind. Along the way, they were blocked by a living controlled slayer. Elsewhere, the boy who had appeared earlier, whose name was Rui, found the female demon controlling the threads, whom he called Mother. He berated her for her incompetence and threatened to tell Father if she didn't deal with all the slayers soon. At his words, the mother demon's face filled with terror, and she hastily promised she would complete the task. Rui departed with a cold farewell, leaving the mother trembling in fear. Influenced by her emotional state, the female slayer in front of Tanjiro contorted and attacked even more violently. Unwilling to harm a comrade, Tanjiro, in a moment of quick thinking, launched the slayers high into the air, leaving them suspended from the trees by the threads. This drove the puppeteer into a greater frenzy, and she killed all the remaining living slayers. Witnessing this atrocity, Tanjiro unleashed a terrifying aura that stunned even Inosuke. Next, a headless demon controlled by threads blocked their path. The closer the threads were to the puppeteer, the stronger her control. However, Tanjiro used himself as a springboard to launch Inosuke into the sky. With a single move, beast breathing, third fang, devour, the headless demon was slain. In return, Inosuke threw Tanjiro high into the air toward the hidden mother demon. As he prepared to strike with water breathing, first form, the mother demon looked up at the figure descending from the sky. To his surprise, she raised her hands quietly welcoming death. Sensing this, Tanjiro changed his attack mid-air from the first form to the 5th form, Blessed Rain. After the drought, under this gentle sword technique, the mother demon felt no pain. The clean rain seemed like a faint light illuminating the darkness in her heart. She recalled her life, how she was abused by her so-called family, constantly beaten and ridiculed. She never imagined that the moment of her release would be so warm. Before she faded away, she warned Tanjiro to be wary of the 12 Kazuki member on the mountain. At the same time, Zenitsu and Shuntaro were searching for their companions when a monster with a human head and a spider's body appeared before them. The horrifying sight sent Zenitsu into a panic. As he fled blindly, he discovered many humans who had been captured by spiders and were in the process of being turned into spider creatures. It turned out this was all the work of one of the spider family's demons, the brother. He had already set his sights on Zenitsu and had secretly bitten him with a poison spider. The venom would turn Zenitsu into a spider monster in just 30 minutes. Hearing this, Zenitsu scrambled up a tree and cried his heart out, which reminded him of his past with his master. He had once hidden in a tree just like this to escape his master's strict training. He had been drowning in debt when his master saved him and offered to teach him everything he knew. It was also during that time that he was struck by lightning. Though he survived, his hair was turned its current shade of yellow. Back in the present, Zenitsu lamented his weakness. He had tried his best and wanted to become someone respectable, but now he was about to be turned into a human spider monster. Just then, the brother demon sent a swarm of smaller spider creatures to frighten him. Zenitsu was horrified to discover his hair was starting to fall out in clumps, a sign that the poison was taking effect. At this realization, the fear finally overwhelmed him and he passed out. But then his second personality awoke. He landed gracefully on the ground in a perfect stance. The brother demon attacked with poison, but Zenitsu dodged every attack using only thunder-breathing first form. The brother demon, seeing he only knew one move, began to mock him. But Zenitsu paid him no mind, for his master had once told him that just as a blade must be hammered thousands of times, a person must be tempered through countless trials. Though thunder-breathing had 6 forms, if one could master a single form to the peak of perfection, they would become a magnificent swordsman. Perhaps he didn't have the genius of his senior, but if he kept polishing his one skill, one day he would forge his own legendary blade. Focus on a single point to the peak of perfection. With a brilliant thunderclap and flash, 6-fold, the brother demon was killed in an instant. Afterward, Zenitsu lay on the roof, quietly waiting for the poison to consume him. He He felt as if he were dreaming. In the dream, he had become incredibly strong and could help the weak and those in need. It meant his master's teachings had not been in vain. Perhaps dying like this, having honored his master's kindness, was not so bad. As his master's encouraging voice echoed in his mind, Zenitsu's hope was rekindled. He resolved to use his breathing to slow the poison's advance and fight for that slim chance of survival. Will anyone come to save Zenitsu? And what powerful new enemies await Tanjiro and Inosuke? Find out in the next chapter.